Welcome to Spiritually Speaking with Althea. I'm Althea Jacob, and I'm delighted that you're joining us today. So today I'm going to talk about a concept I'd like you to ponder, especially in this crazy world. And the concept is emergency versus emergence, or transcendence through transformation. So when you think about what's going on in the world today, I know a lot of people are like, oh my God, is it the end times? It's like everything is crazy. We have natural disasters everywhere. We have contention everywhere. We have wars and rumors of wars. And like life looks so crazy. Almost everybody I know, including myself, doesn't ever seem to have any spare time. They're busy, working their butt off. And in some cases, feeling like I'm never making any progress or getting where I want to get to. Life is challenging and hard, right? So if that's your baseline of life is kind of challenging and hard, and then a crisis hits, something knocks you on your butt, how do you handle that? How can you gracefully go through that? And so this episode is going to be talking about some ideas, some ways to look at things, useful techniques to help you get more into that feeling of reclaiming your power and finding tools to help you get through and get as quickly as possible to the other side of the situation where you can rebuild, restore, heal, and get back to living a life of purpose and meaning and joy and peace. So I'd like to start by sharing two quick stories of things that absolutely rocked my world and sent me for a loop. So about 14 years ago, I was on a trip over in Denmark, and a group of us decided to rent some bikes and go riding, because when in Denmark, of course, that's the thing to do. Half the population rides bikes over there. They're very health conscious and environmentally conscious. And I was like, sure, why not? So we decided to go on a 10-mile bike trip. And about the halfway point, I'm slowly working my way up the hill. And our group had kind of spread out just because people are pedaling at their own pace. And so one of my friends was, I don't know, maybe 2 football fields ahead of me, and there was somebody behind me. So as I was going up the hill, a car came and their side mirror clipped my handlebar and sent me off into the ravine. They didn't notice, but the oncoming traffic did. And so they helped me get out, and I was pretty banged up. I was all scraped up, had some cuts. I had wound up with the bike on top of me, but my knees had sustained quite a lot of damage. I tore both meniscuses in my knees, and was having a real hard time with walking. And so I went from being this Energizer bunny who was go, Mach 10 with my hair on fire most days of my life, high level type A personality of go, get it done. And all of a sudden I was stopped in my tracks. I could barely walk. For a while, I certainly had a major challenge going up and down stairs, and I couldn't carry anything up and down stairs. So when it came to doing laundry or doing food shopping or doing anything where I would have to carry something up and down stairs, I would have to take it, put it on the stair, take a step next, and work my way up, or I'd have to ask for help. I didn't like to ask for help. Never, ever. I hated to have to ask for help. I was Miss Independence, right? So when I look back at this accident that came out of the blue and really changed a lot of how I approached my day-to-day living, I realized in some ways it was a blessing. Not during that time, but afterwards, it forced me to slow down. It forced me to be open to ask for help, which then gave me a deeper sense of gratitude for the people that were in my life, and be able to have a more two-way relationship of give and take. Because all I used to do is give, do. I never allowed anything back. And so that accident actually, besides being a wake-up call, and something that was physically challenging, and I'm still dealing with the repercussions a little bit today, even after surgery and shots and all kinds of stuff. But I'm learning still to this day of times and places where I'm not taking good enough care of myself. I'm not making wise choices. I'm not prioritizing proper eating and exercise and healthy behaviors as much as I should. So in some ways, my knees became my barometer for, okay, did you eat crappy food? Yeah, I ate way too many carbs and way too many sugars. The next day, my knees are killing me, right? The inflammation happens. So in some ways, it's like, all right, I have a little barometer. I know, when I go to grab that food that I know I shouldn't eat on some level, I have a very physical other reminder saying, hey, just be conscious. If you eat this now, this is going to hurt later. So it's still serving a little bit of a purpose. So I'm hoping that once I just make those better choices without having the reminder of my knee, I won't need the reminder of my knee, and I'll be able to walk fully, dance fully, do all the things I used to do. I used to have mountain goat legs. I was a crystal miner for years and climbing up on rock hillsides and balancing in all kinds of crazy positions. And I would go hiking up sacred sites and climbing up hillsides and mountains like they were nothing, right? That was something I loved to do. Well, the thought of doing any of that has been so foreign for the last bunch of years as I was dealing with rehabbing and recovering from the accident, that now I'm looking at it like, oh, okay, there's other things I can do in place of that, but there's also things I can do to still get better and still do some of those things in the future. And I trust I will. So that's the first story I wanted to share. The second story is a little bit more personal. About a year ago, in December of 2022, a little more than a year ago, my husband and partner I'd been with for 16 years came to me and said, I'm not happy. I don't want to be married to you anymore. And he had fallen in love with someone else and wanted other options. And so I first was just devastated because this was somebody who I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with. I had it all planned out. I mean, I had everything all planned out. I'm like, okay, we're going to be able to retire in 4 years and we'll travel and this is what we'll do. And like, I had it all down. I'm a planner, right? For those of you who know me, I'm organized. I'm a planner. I love to have things, pretty much in place. I'm open to spontaneity, but I like to have a plan and then see where it goes, right? My plan got hijacked. It's out the window. I'm like, okay, so now I'm divorced out of the blue. I'm 61 years old. I have to date again. Holy moly. And I have to return to creating income for myself because for the majority of those 16 years, I partnered with him in business as well. And that was always my focus. And I would squeeze in my metaphysical stuff a little bit, and I'd still do some of my healing sessions and my readings and my workshops and retreats and classes. I still did all that stuff in the life coaching and business coaching, but nowhere near full time. I would squeeze it in and do it maybe 5 or 10% of the time, but it certainly wasn't 100% of my time. I prayed and I fasted and I meditated, and I got a message from Spirit. It's okay to let him go. Trust you won't be alone. And cultivate a feeling of forgiveness and love, and truly get to a point in your life where you can be happy for him and his new wife, and you can still be friends with them, and you can proceed in your own life. And the plan B of your life can be even better. It can be filled with other blessings you never even considered. Essentially, going through the crisis made me dig deep and figure out, who am I at my core? How can I and should I act to be congruent with who I am at my core? And in this case, specifically, I'm a Christian and I'm a life coach. Okay. So as a Christian, I have to be forgiving and loving, right? That's what we're supposed to do. And as a life coach, I've helped so many people over the years go through breakups, go through those unexpected moments. And I've given them all these kind of advice and questions. It's like, okay, woman, walk your talk. Are you going to come out of this, I won't say better than before, but are you going to be okay? Are you going to be whole? Are you going to create a life that still has meaning and purpose, even though your future that you planned is not going to look anything like you planned? It might look better. It's going to have surprises. It's going to have different twists and blessings that you didn't see coming because you weren't open to them based on your current situation. A lot of times when we're going through these tsunamis that life throw at us, we need to step back a little bit and figure out, okay, who am I? What do I need? What do I want? What should I do? And sometimes it's just, how do I survive this moment and then build the bridge to then thriving and having a good life again? So those two stories, you may or may not relate to. You maybe never got hit by a car. Maybe you never had a divorce. But I imagine most people listening to this podcast or watching this podcast have had some unexpected crisis or tragedy in your life. You've had a loved one die unexpectedly. You've had a child or a pet injured by some accident that has just totally gotten you focused on helping them and healing them. You've experienced a natural disaster, whether it's a tornado, a hurricane, an earthquake, a flood, a fire, something that has made you have to step back away from all the physical possessions and just be thankful that you're alive and that the people that you love and care about are well and healthy and alive. And if, God forbid, you lost one, how do you deal with that grief on top of rebuilding and recouping from all the losses that you've experienced? Sometimes you're going through a physical challenge or an illness. I have a friend that had a terminal diagnosis of brain cancer. Her name was Lori, and she was one of the most brilliant, loving spirit, creative, free spirits you'd ever want to know and meet. And I remember having a conversation with her, and she said, you know what? Aren't we all terminal in some way? I mean, nobody gets out of life without dying. And I was like, true. And she said, maybe it's a blessing having this terminal diagnosis because I know my time is short. I only have about 2 to 3 years, most likely. So it lets me cut out all the BS. It gives me permission to focus on what's most important to me, to be with the people I love and care about, to accelerate checking off those bucket list items sooner than later, to not suffer the fools, to not waste my time on petty stuff that just doesn't matter, but to make every moment count to the fullest of my ability. I'm like, dang, girl, that's pretty wise. That's pretty wise. So even if we have that illness, that heart attack that we barely survive, and we're like, oh my gosh, that was a wake-up call. Or we know somebody who has had a terrible illness or has passed unexpectedly, or even expectedly. Just their passing is enough to make us question our mortality and where are we in the sequence of our life, and have we accomplished the things that we've hoped to do? Are we on track? Or haven't we even gotten started with the things that we hoped to do because life got so busy we just never got around to it? So sometimes these crises, these unexpected tragedies out of the blue, the stressors that come in that rock our world, destroy our world, shake us to the core of our being, they can be a blessing, but often we don't see it that way until we're on the other side. So one of the things that's important to do is learn from our past. Part of what helped me get through the unexpected divorce of a man I loved and had devoted my life and my world to, that way my world revolved around, what helped me get through that partly was my faith, partly was the friendship and love and support of other friends and family members, and the guidance and promptings of spirit for sure. But it was also from remembering other times in my life where I had had a crisis, a tragedy, a disaster, an unexpected, really hard thing happened in my life that seemed so unfair, but I survived it. I got through it. And in some ways, it gave me skills, resiliency, ways to survive it. And eventually I got to thriving again. And by remembering that, it helped me get through that tough moment. Then I'm like, okay, well, if I lived through that accident and I managed to do okay, and I lived through the sudden death of my father, and I lived through a sudden series of abuses and losses that upset the core of my being and made me question, who am I and how could this happen? How could such bad things happen to such a good person? And I was trying so hard to be a good person. How could these horrible things happen to me? Oh, you know what? Those aren't the right kind of questions to ask. But recognizing that I got through those things, I survived, I learned, and I learned what worked to help me get through those things. Well, now I had clues. I had things that I did then that I could do again, but in an updated way. Remembering to ask for help and knowing that there are people that love and care about you, that there is help, whether it's a stranger on a hotline, a counselor in your school, a priest or deacon or rabbi or minister or trusted confidant that you can turn to in your churches or communities, whether it's family or friends. There's somebody that is there for you, that's gone through something similar. There are all kinds of survivor groups, right? From anything through, hey, I've been battling this addiction for years and I need help to get through it because it hit a crisis. I crashed my car and I killed somebody. And I don't know how to live with myself unless I'm sober. And I need help to get sober. I had a friend that happened to. That was tough. And what helped him get through it was a 12-step program and going multiple times a week. And little by little realizing, yeah, it wasn't intentional. He didn't mean to hurt somebody. He certainly didn't mean to kill somebody. But he was dealing with his demons. And he needed help to overcome them. And he did. And he's an amazing, healed, whole, productive member of society today, and somebody who was able to find forgiveness for himself through going through those programs. There's survivor groups for people that have been the victim of incest, for every kind of addiction under the planet, every kind of loss, people that have lost children, people that have lost limbs, people that have suffered grave injuries in the military. There are groups that are out there specifically designed. So please ask for help. And if you don't know, Google it. Ask a friend, ask a family member. Somebody's going to know somebody somewhere that can help, so that you don't feel alone, so you don't feel overwhelmed, so you know that when crisis hits, you're going to get through it. You will live again. You will thrive again. You will survive in this moment and live to have a life filled with peace and joy and blessings after it's all done. One of the things that's really helpful to do when you're going through a crisis, and it can be a little interruption type crisis, like I'm on my way to this concert and I get a flat tire and there's nobody to help me. And I call AAA and it's going to be 3 hours and I'm going to miss that concert. And I'm really bummed because I'm going to miss that concert. Well, you know what? You have to be real in that moment. It's okay to be a little PO'd. It's okay to be like, why me? I really wanted to go, right? You can give yourself the little mini pity party for a while. That's okay. But then you deal with the problem at hand. You call AAA, you change the tire yourself. And, maybe you say, well, okay, for whatever reason, I don't know why I wasn't supposed to be there, but maybe you do know. Maybe when you get back home because you're not at the concert, you think of a friend and call that friend, and that person really needed to talk to you. And you later found out that they were going through a really tough patch and you helped them through. Maybe there was a bad car accident that you avoided by being stuck on the road. Sometimes we know, sometimes we don't. But one of the things to do whenever we're in those moments is be real in that moment. Do what you have to get through that moment. But then don't hold on to it forever. I mean, wouldn't it be ridiculous if every time you saw some new person or somebody you know for the next 10 years, you tell them the story about how you got a flat tire on your way to the Billy Joel concert and you never got to see him. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on, right? You dealt with it, of course, in the moment, but you don't have to keep rehashing it and reliving it over and over and over again. One of the best things you can do for the more serious types of crises or tragedies or things that hit is to ask better questions. Asking the question, why did this happen to me? Raising your best pleading voice to the heavens is not really the best way to go sometimes. Why did it happen? It could be for a whole bunch of reasons, but does it really matter why it happened? Unless there's something you needed to learn. If why did I have this accident was because I was drinking too much and I was driving while impaired, yeah, that's important to know. But for some of the tragedies or crises that hit you in your life that come out of the blue that you really did nothing to do to cause directly, for those kind of questions, it's so much more useful to ask the question, so this, now what? So if this is where I'm at, and this is where I find myself, if my plan A is out the window and all the things I thought and planned I was going to be doing now and in the near future are not possible anymore, what's my plan B or C or D or E? What's the next steps I should be taking to heal, to rebuild, and to get myself back on track to the best possible outcome and the blessings and the desires to the best of my ability with this plan, this next phase of my life, this next plan. In Chinese alphabet, I was told that the character for opportunity is the same character for crisis. And when you're going forward and looking at things in life, it's really important that you can see both. Like, okay, so this may feel like a crisis, but if you ask the question, is there something I can gain from this? Is there a blessing or an opportunity that I'm not aware of because of this? The person who loses their job suddenly, maybe one of the blessings is they get to be back home with their family and reconnect with their wife or their husband in ways that they haven't because they've been the workaholic and never home. And so maybe for that short period of time while they are in the job hunt again, they're reconnecting on a personal level. So there's always a blessing that you can find. Sometimes you have to wait for it. Sometimes you're not going to see it until you're way down the road and the healing's happened and the rebuilding has happened and life is kind of taken its new twists and turns and you've learned things. That's when you get it. So what I'd like to suggest here, we'll have a metaphysical moment, if you will, and do a little exercise. I'd like you to think back to a time in your life and actually write down these highlights if you're at a place if you're at a place where you can get a journal or you can write it on your phone. If you're driving, please don't. Just make mental notes. But if you're at a place where you can literally write them down somewhere, write down the highlights of the most challenging situation or thing that has ever happened to you. So write it down. Notice if this was something that happened to you or something that you directly caused to happen. Because there's a difference, right? How we feel. If we did something that caused it to do it to ourselves, we're like, oh my God, what was I thinking? We have to deal with, healing a lot of that self-guilt and the blame. And if it's something that happens to us, we're always trying to understand the cause, but it's a lot easier sometimes to get through it if it happened to us and not because of us, right? But anyway, so reflect back to the people, the guidance, the tools. What happened that helped you get through that when those things happened back then? Remember and notice what you learned as a result of it. And how did your life change because of it? And were there ways that your life became better now because of what you went through then? Recognize if there's themes. So if you're somebody that's had a lot of these interrupts in your life where you've had crises and chaos and all these out of the blue things that totally have set you reeling and upended your world and changed the trajectory of your life. If you've had a lot of those, it's important to notice what were some of the common themes. Were there themes? Were there similar things that seemed to happen? Were there learnings or lessons that, wow, I only learned it a little bit the first couple times, but boy, I finally got that lesson. That's probably why these things kept coming, right? If we assume that in general, it's a benevolent universe, and part of the reason we're here is to learn and become the best we can be and fulfill our soul's purpose in the measure of our creation, then all the things that we experience, the good, the bad, the ugly, this expected, unexpected, it has the potential to serve us in some way if we can figure out, how can this serve me, that I went through this crazy time? I promise you, if you can get to the point where you're asking the better questions, what do I need to do now in this moment? So this now what? What do I need to do to become the best me despite whatever's happened? What is it I need to do to become the person I can best become, that I want to become, but I'm just not there yet? What are the steps I can take to move, even just one day at a time, move in the direction of that goal, of that beingness? It'll help you get through little by little. And be patient with yourself. Be kind to yourself. Ask yourself, how would you help, treat, talk to, and be with your best friend if they were going through what you just went through and are going through? What is the kind of encouragement you would give them? What grace and patience would you extend to them? And extend that to yourself. Because so often when we're going through these crises, we ask bad questions that make us feel worse. When I first heard about the divorce, or my husband wanting a divorce, the first thing that came into my mind was, why wasn't I good enough? Why wasn't my all good enough for this man? Why wasn't the completeness of my love and devotion over all these years enough? Right? Oh my God, was that ever a crappy question to ask? That's not helpful. What might have been a better thing to ask is, what might I have done to mitigate it if I knew it was coming? But you know what? Again, that would be past focused. I needed to be focused in the now. The questions I needed to ask were, what's the best thing I can do now to go through this process gracefully, to find balance, and to come out whole on the other side, and to make sure that everybody who's involved feels forgiven, loved, and they can be as whole as possible on the other side as well. Because that was important to me. That's part of my ethic. That's part of who I am at my core. So I had to ask better questions and not be so mad at myself that my little girl was asking, but why me? That happens, right? That's real. We have to be real in the moment, but then we also have to kind of take control and say, okay, I cannot impact or change. Very often, I can't change the things that happen to me, but I have absolute control over how I can think about it, how I can feel about it, and I have a lot of choice in what I can do about it. And that's where I reclaim my power. That's where I can start the healing. That's where I can get back on track with my life and be open to the blessings and the opportunities that only this new path would bring me to. I'd like to share a little bit of some inspired writings that I had done that kind of fit into this. One is just some questions that came to me from Spirit during a time of great transition and upheaval. And the other is a poem. So the first one, the inspired writing, says, what if you shed all the preconceived notions of who you are, who you were, and who you would become, and allowed the wisdom of your expanded awareness to recraft, redesign, and rebuild the best possible version of yourself in the here and now in order to fulfill your destiny and become the fullness of your creation by your choice, by your agency, by your advocacy, and by aligning yourself with your birthright, claiming your birthright as a child of God and a part of all that is. What if you did those things? How would you experience this tragedy, this crisis, this unexpected twist of fate? How would it be different for you? And the second thing I wanted to share, it's a poem I wrote, and it's called Change. Fittingly, right? Hopefully. So change. What does it mean to redefine yourself or recreate your life? After a major life change due to circumstances or choice, we may find ourselves asking, where do we go from here? If I am no longer the person I was before, my role has changed, then who am I now? Or maybe a better question to ask is, who do I want to be or become? So this, now what? 4 very powerful words that can set the tone for your future actions, directions, choices, and behaviors. How would you and your life be different if you acted in alignment with the person you were becoming, but just haven't gotten there yet? Would your choices be clearer? Would you be more confident as you went throughout your day, since you had a pretty good idea of where you were going and why? Each day, you would be moving closer and closer to the person and to the life you want for yourself, despite what is happening around you. If you live in alignment with your higher self, you will find you are living a life where you have purpose, direction, and guidance along the way. Follow the promptings of the true voice in your heart, and you can and will become a spontaneous, your life can, reset that one. Follow the promptings of the true voice in your heart, and life can and will become a spontaneous dance where you flow from moment to moment, always being in the right place at the right time with the right people for you to help them or for them to help you help others. Magical manifesting and flow can and will become your norm. Let your legacy be the light you shine and the example you lead by the way you live your life. Always do what is right to the best of your ability. Be loving, be gracious, be kind. And instead of having regrets, you'll be filled with joy and peace and gratitude for the life you live and the many gifts and blessings given to you and all around you along your way. Thank you for tuning in to Spiritually Speaking with Althea. I hope you've enjoyed. Sorry, try that again. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Spiritually Speaking with Althea. I hope you've enjoyed thinking about and pondering the difference between having an emergency and allowing it be an opportunity for emergence. I'd like to do a quick promotion of a couple of classes that are coming up in the near future. I'm teaching a Zoom conference in May. It's going to be 3 different days, May 7, 11, and 16. And it's going to be on ancient wisdoms for modern times, looking at the different tools and symbols and wisdoms from certain cultures and ancestors and how and why they might be relevant to us today. We've all heard there's nothing new under the sun. Well, sometimes digging back and seeing some of the ways other cultures, other peoples at different times went through challenges can be very helpful in the now. And so we're going to explore those in that Zoom call. And I'm also going to be teaching and leading a retreat in Sedona, and it's going to be called Path to Empowerment, and that's going to be on June 7th, 8th, and 9th. You can find more information about those 2 opportunities on my website. So please feel free to go there and check it out. And lastly, I'm really excited to let you know that my book is finally done. And by the time you're watching or listening this, it should be available for download on Kindle and as a print on demand from Amazon. And the book is called Portal to Potential, The Muse of Monroe. And it's filled with a lot of spiritual insights, things to ponder, creative writing, things that came through spirit that helped me through a lot of the challenging times in my life, helped me understand ways to think about things better, to still raise my consciousness and awareness as I went through some of these challenges. And so it might be an interesting book for you guys to check out. So please check that out again and do all the normal nice things you do on social media, like, share, follow, click, all that good stuff. I welcome your comments, your questions. I'm looking forward to future episodes with you. And I thank you for sharing your time with me. I know how precious time is. I hope you have a blessed day. And thank you again for joining me. This is Althea from Spiritually Speaking with Althea, wishing you the very best.